What would you do if your own parents chose your younger sister over you and made you sleep on the floor of your childhood home? I never thought I'd be homeless, while technically still living under my parents' roof. But there I was, 29 years old, a Berkeley graduate with honors, watching my entire life reduced to a pile of boxes in a narrow hallway. And my mother, she didn't even flinch. "You can just sleep on the floor until you figure life out," she said casually. No emotion, no hesitation, no room. Just a living room floor, a musty sleeping bag, and the echo of a future they never saw me in. But while they thought I was just lying there defeated, I was planning something they'd never forget. If you've ever been overlooked by your own family, stay with me, this story is for you. Drop your state in the comments, hit that like button, and let's dive in. Before everything collapsed, I was that daughter, the one who followed the rules. I'd graduated with distinction from Berkeley's School of Architecture, fueled by late nights ramen noodles and dreams of building eco-conscious cities. I was supposed to start my career with a bang. Instead, it imploded. The economy was tanking. Construction jobs froze like concrete in a winter storm. My dream firm rescinded their offer. I was stranded. So I came home to Rochester, New York, just for a few months, I told myself. A temporary pit stop to regroup. At first, my parents, Diana and Frank, were supportive, or so I thought. Mom packed snacks for my interviews. Dad said he'd proofread my cover letters. And the house still had my old bedroom. Trophies on the shelf. My architectural models collecting dust like forgotten blueprints of who I used to be. My sister Brooke, now a high school senior, was still the bright, breezy force she'd always been. She'd burst into my room, flopping onto my bed mid-scroll, gushing about crushes and college dreams. "Sam, you think I have a shot at state with your GPA and hustle?" "Absolutely," I'd reply, meaning every word. I was proud of her. I was hopeful for both of us. I created structured job apps in the morning, helping around the house by afternoon. 3 nights a week I cooked. Every Sunday I scrubbed the bathrooms. And $300 a month, straight from my savings, into our groceries and utilities. But slowly, things shifted. At dinner one night, Mom beamed at Brooke's latest accomplishment and honors program. "This will really help her college apps," she said, serving her seconds. Dad added Samantha was in honors too, like it was trivia. Mom didn't even glance up. Yes, but things were different then. Brooke's under real pressure. The sting didn't come from what she said. It came from the look Brooke shot me, guilt quiet and burning, and how I still smiled and changed the subject, because I thought it wasn't worth a fight. I focused on my big break, a job interview at Hartman Design Group, a firm known for sustainable projects. It went better than I could have imagined. The director herself said my portfolio showed both practicality and vision. She smiled and said, "We'll be in touch soon." Hope. Real, breathing, alive hope bloomed inside me for the first time in months. I even made dinner that night, Mom's favorite lasagna, 3 cheeses, handmade pasta. We laughed. We toasted. Dad raised his wine glass. To Samantha, soon to be Hartman's newest architect, I didn't know it would be the last time I'd ever feel like a full member of my own family. 2 days after that hopeful dinner, I came home from a meeting with a contractor who'd agreed to let me shadow him, another promising step in rebuilding my future. But when I opened the front door, something was off. The house was silent. Too silent. I called out. No answer. Climbing the stairs, I saw a pile of boxes in the hallway. My boxes, books, clothes, framed awards, even my drafting supplies. My heart dropped. Had we been robbed? But no, nothing was gone. Just moved, like I didn't belong. I opened my bedroom door, only it wasn't my bedroom anymore. My twin bed gone. In its place, Brooke's queen-sized one. My architectural prints replaced by concert posters and fairy lights. Even my drafting table had been swapped out for her vanity, cluttered with hairbrushes and contour kits. It was like I'd never existed. "Oh, you're back," my mom said casually, appearing behind me with a laundry basket. "We moved your things out." Brooke needed more space for her senior year. I turned stunned. "You moved me out. Without even telling me you were gone all day," she said, like that justified it. Then Dad chimed in from down the hall. "The living room floor should be fine for now. We still have that old sleeping bag from camping. No remorse, no discussion, just decisions, just displacement. And then Brooke appeared standing in the doorway of my former room, twirling a strand of hair. I needed the space, Sam, for college stuff. She shrugged. It's not like you have a real job anyway. I stared at her. My baby sister, who used to beg me to braid her hair and read her essays, now echoing our parents' cruelty without hesitation. I contribute here, I said, voice barely steady. I cook clean pay toward bills. Mom gave me that patronizing smile the kind adults give children who've said something cute, and we appreciate that. But Brooke is at a critical point in her development. Her needs take priority. I wanted to scream, but instead, a strange calm took over. It was like floating outside my body, watching it all happen to someone else. I simply said, I see. That night, I unrolled the old sleeping bag on the hard living room floor. No privacy, no doors, just the cold wood pressing against my back. And every time someone walked through the room, I had to curl tighter, smaller, more invisible. Upstairs, Brooke laughed into her phone music, blaring, while I lay there wide awake trying to remind myself that I wasn't crazy. But the next morning, they painted her new room lavender. Lavender. The same color I'd begged to paint it when it was mine when I was 17 and was told no because it was too much work. Now suddenly Brooke's focus mattered. Her study vibes mattered. I didn't. I was no longer a daughter, just a placeholder, a burden, an afterthought. And that's when it hit me. If they could casually erase me from this house, then I could just as quietly write them out of my future. I wouldn't beg. I wouldn't argue. I'd rebuild. In silence. They thought I'd break, that I'd shrink into silence, quietly disappearing like the furniture they'd moved out of my old room. But sleeping on that hard floor didn't destroy me. It sharpened me. With every sleepless night, the pain in my spine became a blueprint, a plan, one they'd never see coming. For the next 3 weeks, I played the part. Quiet, compliant, I cooked, cleaned, paid. And each night I unrolled that same sleeping bag, wedging myself between the couch and the coffee table like an afterthought. They never noticed the shift in my eyes, but I had stopped hoping and started plotting. It wasn't just the physical discomfort that fueled me. It was the constant gnawing reminder that my dignity had a price and they'd just sold it for Brooke's vanity mirror. Even the smallest things became digs. Mom told me to store my toiletries in a plastic basket because Brooke needed more counter space. Dad refused to let me use the hallway closet because it was for guests. Guests. Apparently, my presence didn't even qualify as permanent anymore. I kept my clothes in boxes, wrinkled, crumpled. My resume looked better than my outfits most days, but none of that compared to the emotional ghosting that started to suffocate me. They stopped asking about my job search. No one cared when I mentioned I had a second interview lined up. All conversation revolved around Brooke, her classes, her future dorm decor, her potential student council presidency. I faded into their background like outdated wallpaper, still there, but unseen, still breathing, but irrelevant. Then came the breaking point. One afternoon I returned from a job fair, exhausted, hopeful. And there they were, 4 of Brooke's friends sprawled across the living room, my sleeping space, giggling at some Netflix rom-com. "Oh, this is my sister Brooke," said, waving a hand at me like I was a roommate from Craigslist. "She's between things right now." I managed a tight smile. And then Madison, her best friend since forever, looked me dead in the eye and said, "Wait, you actually sleep right here, that's so sad." Then she laughed. That was the moment. Right then, humiliation turned to steel. I wasn't going to argue with my family. I wasn't going to beg for my humanity back. Instead, I was going to buy the house next door. It sounded crazy impossible even. But I had something they didn't know about my acceptance email from Hartman Design Group. It came days earlier while I was slicing carrots for dinner. $62,000, $1,000 starting salary, full benefits, project placement within the first 90 days. I didn't tell them. Why would I? They never asked. That email wasn't just an offer, it was an exit strategy. While they were busy ignoring me, I was touring the house next door. It had been on the market for months, dated, neglected, forgotten, just like me. Original 80s kitchen needs full reno, the realtor warned, walking me through outdated cabinets and orange tile. I smiled. The bones are good. The backyard was massive, over a quarter-acre, with a clear sightline into my parents' kitchen window. I stood at the back door staring across the fence and felt a spark ignite in my chest. I'm interested. The next day, I met with a loan officer at First National, and this is what they didn't know: I had an ironclad employment offer from Hartman, a near-perfect credit score, and a $20,000 inheritance from Grandma Eleanor, which my parents never even knew existed. Solid financials, the loan officer said, impressed. You're pre-approved, just like that. While they discussed Brooke's prom dress colors, I was signing a mortgage on the house next door, and I told no one. I woke early, stayed late at work, and used lunch breaks to meet with my contractor, Raphael, and my designer. We prioritized the kitchen, bathroom, and primary suite. Everything else could wait. 6 weeks, I told them. Just enough time to execute my exit, without raising suspicion. My parents never noticed. Not the paint smudges on my cuffs, not the exhaustion from running 2 lives, not the missing pieces of me that had moved next door one box at a time. But the day the quartz countertops were installed, I stood barefoot in my soon-to-be kitchen, ran my fingers along the edge, and smiled. This wasn't revenge. It was reclamation. It was proof. I didn't need to argue to win. I just needed to build something they couldn't ignore. And that's when I contacted Coastal Designs about the pool. I wanted it modern, minimal, and perfectly placed in their direct line of sight. Is that intentional? The contractor asked, raising an eyebrow. Very, I said, and signed the contract. Meanwhile, back home, they still thought I was stuck. Mom asked if I could wipe down the guest bathroom again, because Brooke's study group was coming over. Brooke didn't study. She held court in my old room like a princess while I cleaned toilets, but they didn't know the demolition would begin next door in a matter of days. And when it did, I wouldn't be asking for permission. I'd be pouring concrete with purpose. On my final night in their house, I lay on the floor staring at the ceiling like I had every night for weeks. But this time, I wasn't exhausted. I was electric. At 5:30 a.m., I rolled up my sleeping bag, grabbed 2 suitcases, and my favorite coffee mug. I didn't say goodbye. Just left a note on the kitchen counter. Found my own place. Won't be needing the floor anymore. Then I walked out their door and into my own. By the time the pool excavation began, my parents still thought I was crashing at a friend's place. They had no idea I'd been living next door for over a week. Until one morning, the sound of jackhammers shattered the suburban silence. Concrete split, dirt flew, and from their kitchen window they saw me, standing in the backyard of my own home, clipboard in hand, directing contractors. The knock on my door came faster than I expected. I looked through the peephole. Diana and Frank, my parents, confused, defensive, already on edge. I opened the door, staying in the threshold. I didn't invite them in. Samantha? What is this? Mom asked, eyes scanning the sleek entryway behind me. I bought this house. I live here now. Dad blinked. Next door. Since when? How I've been working at Hartman Design for 6 weeks, I said, voice calm. The job I told you about, the one you never asked about again. Their mouths opened, then closed. They were so used to overlooking me, they hadn't even realized they'd stopped looking altogether. Why didn't you tell us? Mom asked, as if the silence had been the betrayal. I smiled slightly. You didn't ask. There it was. No yelling, no theatrics, just truth delivered like a surgical incision. You should have at least given us notice, Dad added weakly. Like you did when you emptied my room for Brooke, I replied. The air thickened. From behind them, Brooke appeared, eyes wide. She looked at the freshly poured foundation for the pool, then back at me, silent, processing. Mom's tone shifted. Well, can we come in? This is still a family matter. No, I said simply. This is my home. Entrance is by invitation only. That privilege is earned. They looked stunned, as if the very idea of being denied by their daughter was unfathomable. "We're still your parents," Dad's voice cracked. "And I was still your daughter when you made me sleep on the floor." That's when it hit them. Not just the logistics, but the symbolism. Every inch of this house, every paint swatch, every tile was a declaration. I had rebuilt my dignity next door to their denial. The sound of construction picked up again. The pool diggers had resumed. Dad glanced toward the yard. "What are you building back there?" he asked. "Perspective." I closed the door. From that moment on, the dynamic shifted. They tried to make nice with cookies, with suggestions, with "We're proud of you" that rang hollow. But I kept my distance. Every splash of that pool, every light that came on in my kitchen, while theirs stayed dark, wasn't revenge. It was a mirror, one they had to look into. Every day. The waterfall feature was installed 2 days later, sleek, serene, right in line with their kitchen window. By now, the whole neighborhood knew. Did you hear Samantha bought the house next door? She built a pool, and they didn't even know. Some said it was petty. Others called it legendary. My mother showed up again, this time at my back door. No cookies, no fake smile, just arms crossed and eyes narrowed. "This seems excessive," she said, nodding toward the pool. "Are you trying to make a statement?" I didn't flinch. "I'm building a home that reflects my values, just like you did when you decided the floor was good enough for your daughter." She stiffened. "You're being dramatic." "No, I'm being clear. This I gestured around me is what clarity looks like." Her expression cracked just slightly. "You didn't even tell us you were suffering. You didn't want to know," I said, voice calm. And that's what hurt the most. As summer deepened, so did the divide. Dad tried first offering to help plant flowers. For once, he didn't talk over me. He just listened, apologized. Halting, but real. Mom. She clung to her version of events. "Families make sacrifices," she said in the produce aisle one day. "Yes," I replied, "picking apples, but not of their dignity." Brooke surprised me. She came alone one afternoon, holding 2 iced coffees and a folded letter from State University full scholarship. "I want to study architecture," she said, cautious. "Is that weird?" "No. It's bold." She bit her lip. "Mom says it's too competitive." I looked her dead in the eye. Mom said a lot of things that were wrong. She nodded, the weight of understanding clear. "You've changed," she whispered. "You're kind of badass now." I laughed. Somewhere between the floor and the pool, I had learned to own that word. On the anniversary of my move-out, I threw a housewarming party. Only one family member got an invite, Brooke. No explanations, no guilt, just boundaries. Colleagues from Hartman came. So did Aunt Patricia and Uncle Gregory. Even the neighbors brought wine and plants. And from across the fence, I saw them, Diana and Frank, watching quietly from their kitchen. They didn't wave, but Dad nodded once, solemn. I returned it. Nothing more. Because reconciliation without accountability, that's just denial in a nicer dress. Later, as the last guest drifted away, Brooke stood by the pool, arms crossed. "Do you ever regret any of it?" she asked softly. I stared into the blue water lit from beneath. "No," I said, "because pain taught me how to build. And this," I swept my hand around the garden, the home, the serenity, "this is what I built from that pain. If you've ever been discarded by your own family, made to feel less than, or told that your struggles were your fault, just know this. Sometimes the most powerful move isn't yelling, it's building in silence, until your success is unmistakable. Have you ever had to create a boundary with your family that felt extreme but was absolutely necessary? Tell me in the comments. And if this story moved, you hit like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs the courage to reclaim their worth. Because from the floor, you can still build a foundation. Just don't let anyone tell you that's where you belong.